everybody, and welcome to our program this evening. Very happy to see all of you out there in YouTube and X and Facebook world. Got some new guests, or at least one new guest, Kay. Good morning, welcome. Very happy to see you.
Thank you.
Kay is an activist. They're an activist out there in Queens. Taryn, good morning.
Good morning.
And Anita.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. We got a lot to talk about this morning. Supreme Court, the Supremes have done it again and made a decision on hearing an immunity case, which has big implications, not just immediately, but long term. We're going to be talking about that. Then there was a meeting of conservatives, CPAC, Conservative Political Action Committee, chock full of Ku Kluxes and Nazis. And they ain't embarrassed at all. So we're going to dig into that a little bit, but not too deep, because the deeper you go, the funkier it gets. And then we're going to be talking about the ceasefire and developments in Michigan, which were important, significant, exciting in their Democratic primary. And then finally, big developments in the labor movement and the Starbucks organizing. And if you're thinking about dinner tonight, we got a proposal for you, and it don't cost much. Stay tuned, and you'll hear about that. But first, Anita, the Supreme Court the other day made a ruling. The Trump appealed the decision of the appeals court, federal appeals court, which says you have unconditional immunity. Are you kidding? Are you joking? Come on, give us a break. Trump didn't like that so much, so he appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, after 2.5 weeks, said that they were going to issue a decision, I believe in April, along the following lines. Does the president have immunity, absolute immunity, after leaving office for criminal acts alleged to have occurred while in office? That's a very broad scope that, and I was listening to Professor Tribe from Harvard the other day, and he said, I'm, totally astonished, he said, but not really. He said, if they wanted to deal with this seriously, they would have said whether they would have limited the issue to whether a president charged with criminality, with criminally seeking to stay in office, has absolute immunity for the crimes committed while in office. In any event, Anita, what's at issue here? Is the Supreme Court ignoring politics and deciding on the objective legal issues here? Or are they succumbing to politics, caving into pressures from the right? And why should we care?
Well, Joe, this is really a travesty. It's a gift that Donald Trump's Supreme Court has given him, delaying the tactic through delaying the start of the trial in Washington, D.C. It's just a huge gift to him. I think what it means is we have to. I can't imagine also that people like Clarence Thomas were able to weigh in on this decision. Clearly he and his family are a corrupt Supreme Court justice, and really has been shown to be. And his wife is wrapped up in the January 6th insurrection and so forth. So it's really a travesty, but I think what it means is we can't depend on the Supreme Court to bail us out, and we have to just make sure that we defeat fascism, in every day, up to and including election days. So I think it's the people that have to weigh in here, not the Supreme Court. We can't depend on them. And I just want to go back. I still feel a little anger at people from who voted for Hillary in 2016 because they were too pure to vote for Hillary. They voted, they just stayed home or voted for Jill Stein or somebody. And this is their Supreme Court who has done this. And I just want to remind people, I know I hold a grudge, but I do sometimes. And this is one of those moments.
But come on, I mean, Mrs. Clinton lost in Michigan. She didn't even campaign in Michigan. And, I mean, anyway, and Michigan is coming up in the discussion about 10 minutes. So you'll have another chance to rebut what I just said, Anita. But Taryn, Trump is a master of delay. He got the money, he's got the lawyers, delay, obfuscate, delay some more, obfuscate some more, dodge. If he'd have been a counterpuncher, he might have been heavyweight champion, unless he fought Muhammad Ali, and then he'd be in trouble because he would get knocked out. But shouldn't the case be decided by vote? I mean, anyway, or should 4 or 5 justices decide the issue, or is that in itself a fake question?
Gee, it's really hard for me to say because I don't really care all that much how it is that we keep Trump out of office. If this is going to be decided by a steep flight of stairs, for instance, I would be just as satisfied with that possibility. But yeah, no, I mean, it really does show that regardless, because I mean, honestly, so the Supreme Court has already made their decision. They're going to push this off until the absolute last minute to make sure that Trump can get on the ballot. And so it's sort of, it's a hypothetical. Like, we're going to have to vote against this guy no matter what. Otherwise, we're in big trouble. But I do want to keep these Supreme Court justices sort of in my sight because this is going to continue to be a problem until the rank corruption and moral depravity of the Supreme Court is addressed, right? So I haven't forgotten about Roe. I haven't forgotten about how they got rid of affirmative action. It makes total sense to me that they would also be trying to enable a fascist to basically get back into power. So we're really going to have to do something about these Supreme Court people eventually. This is just sort of one more example as to why we need to do that.
But they're appointed for life. How do you? I mean, the only way that you can get rid of them is by radically reforming the court, adding more justices, and then praying to the gods or whoever that they, pass while in office. No, Taryn? I mean,
I can live with that. I can live with stacking the court. I can live with, radically reforming the justice system. I think that's kind of what we're out to do anyway as the Communist Party, right? Is we want to make sure that we can put an end to this nonsense of, not democratically elected justices who are so out of control, totally out to lunch, completely disconnected from the working class. How can we bring that under stronger working class control,
Okay, were you surprised? I mean, and number one, and number two, what does this say about the state of governance in these United States? I mean, only 41% of the people polled last year have confidence in the Supreme Court, and that's dropped over the last 2 years since the Dobbs decision. It used to be 68%. And now I would guess mainly women are saying, later for that, this is stupid. We're not supporting this craziness. So were you surprised? And then number two, what does it say about the state of confidence in government in this country?
Well, I can say I was surprised. I based on my uh, high school level education and how the government works, they tell you that there's supposed to be a rule of law. And that's how the United States was set up. And so when you see those rules kind of being broken, I mean, two lower courts have already ruled on this, saying that, we've looked over all the arguments, as extensively as we could, and there's no basis for Trump to be considered immune. Um, I think that, uh, like you said, like you said, another person said, there's no reason to take this up at this point unless you're planning on coming up with a way that Trump could possibly be immune. So ultimately, we're deciding, does the president have the ability to do whatever they want and be considered immune for it? Usually that is a property that we assign to gods only. But, the fact that it's a question now, I think, reinforces the feelings of those people who are disengaged from the political process. And what we want to do as the party is to re-engage people so that we can make the changes that need to happen to make sure that there is a rule of law, a rule of justice here.
We're not trying to lead people into despair, but out of it, and
Exactly.
and give folks hope. I think that's a really, really important issue. But Anita, the system is so corrupt. It's so, just, we talk about this in the pre-convention discussion document. We encourage everybody to go to our website and read it. There is a crisis of governance in this country that's taking place, a crisis of a capitalist state, 4%, only 4% say government is working well. Only 16%, I'm not making these numbers up, this is the poll, the polling agencies. 16% trust government. 3 in 10 people, we argue in that according to the poll, we argue in the document, don't have confidence in either political party, Democrats or Republicans. Independents are at 50% of the country. That's the combined total of both Democrats and Republicans. And so we have and that's to say nothing about trust in the mass media, a decline in confidence and trust in other institutions like the churches or a mosque or synagogues or temples or whatever. I mean, people just don't know what to do and where to do it, and so and you have a situation where folks are feeling that um, they might as well, not vote. So how do you change that, Anita? I mean, what kinds of things does the Communist Party propose that we focus on?
Well, I think we have to really focus on working people and their conditions of living. How are they able to put food on the table? Are they able to join with their fellow workers in union? Are they able to find childcare to that will care for their young children in a safe and reliable manner? Healthcare is another area, and housing. I mean, we just have so many needs on the part of people. They're really struggling. And elections and policy choices do make a difference. As the Poor People's Campaign says a lot, and they're having big marches this weekend, that poverty is a policy choice. We're making that choice, or government is making that choice. So I think people it's understandable that they don't have faith in their government, and they don't have faith in government institutions. Of course, government and the ability that people have when they do join together in government to take steps to improve their lives is being undermined all the time by conservatives who want the tiniest government possible. Whereas it could really make a difference. And I know we're going to talk about the ceasefire later, but it brings home the need to take funds away from this bloated military budget, and give it to solve people's actual needs. So I think that's what we're looking to do, improving the chances of the working class to be able to come together. They have to have childcare and decent conditions of life in order to do that effectively.
So Taryn, Anita is arguing that health care is an issue, reproductive rights is an issue, affirmative action is an issue, the military budget is an issue, but fascism is an issue too, even though it's a little bit more remote. And the Conservative Political Action Committee just had a meeting recently. It was chock full of Nazis and Ku Kluxers and Proud Boys and what do they call them? 3%ers or whatever, 5%ers. I forget what percent. It's small. And one of those guys, what was his name? Joe Posabik, whatever. Said, "Welcome to the end of the." Tell us about it, Taryn.
Well, actually, I think we have a clip lined up for the show. If you want to play that,
I just want to say, welcome to the end of democracy. We're here to overthrow it completely. We didn't get all the way there on January 6th, but we will endeavor to get rid of it and replace it with this right here. We'll replace it with this right here.
Amen.
Yeah, so that's Steve Bannon moderating a panel with a bunch of fascists on it. Jack Probiasek, I don't even care how to pronounce these people's names correctly, to be honest with you. Yeah, no, I mean, like, the people who don't believe in elections are these guys, right? Mm-hmm. The people who don't really care about voting are these guys. And to me, I stand in such basic opposition to fascism as a communist, right? That's like our baseline. That it's like, well, whatever they're telling me not to do, I'm actually going to do it harder. Like, I'm going to go out and vote harder because these guys are saying that it doesn't matter anymore. They want to get rid of democracy. They want to get rid of elections. They want to get rid of voting. So yeah, it's completely 100% important to fight for it. Otherwise, we are in huge trouble because we're not going to get anywhere with the agenda that Anita laid out with our own party program. We're not going to get anywhere if we don't have the actual space to fight and to really assert ourselves as the working class in the struggle collectively through voting. They hate voting. They hate it when we assert ourselves collectively as the working class. And that's why they want to get rid of democracy.
Okay, people are so furious at Mr. Biden and his administration and his State Department for the support of the Israeli government's genocide in Gaza. I mean, they're just red with anger, as are we all, and they can't see through it, and so we've been arguing that for right now, we need to focus on the issue of the ceasefire. You got to clear away that smoke. You got to clear away the rubble. You got to bury those 30,000 children who were murdered by the Israeli armed forces as a precondition to be even beginning to think about what's coming in November. Is that wrong?
No, I don't think that's wrong. I would say that's exactly the correct position. What's going on here is, I think, a proper functioning democracy, which is, when the people you put into office betray your trust and do things that you don't want them to do. You have the checks and the balances set up in that system, where the people from where the power that the government has comes uh, can exercise their right to say, we want to see your behavior change or we're going to replace you. And I think because of the way the election system works in this country, I don't want to get too ahead because we're going to talk about it, but there are paths forward that allow people to voice their concern and to strategize about this, depending on which state they're in. So I think we can take this opportunity to think very creatively about how we as working people want to voice our concerns when it comes to this issue. And, we never tell people just vote blue no matter who. Uh, we think about this from a strategic perspective, which is, you look at the options that are in front of you, all of them, which go beyond the ballot box. We have 4 years uh, between elections, and we think, what can we do to make sure that our voices are being heard, that the government is doing what we want it to do, because we are for self-governance. The people govern themselves, and the power of the government comes from the people. So that's what we're about.
And the more self-governance, the better. And when the working class as a whole has self-governance, we call that socialism. A working class-led state, and that's what we're fighting for. But right now, we got to get through this year. We got to get through building this movement around Gaza. We got to get through the election, and we got to get through the inauguration of a new administration. And we saw last year, 4 years ago, what happened on January the 6th. But Anita, um, one of the good things that has happened over the last period is that people are now taking demonstrative action up and down the length and breadth of the country, uh, uh, starting with abortion rights, and now emerging into a new mass peace movement around Gaza. They are, in fact, as cases suggested, keeping the pressure on. They're keeping the pressure on, and they're utilizing every tool in the toolbox in order to do it. They're shutting down traffic, so they're slowing down at work, they're occupying, they're marching, they're demonstrating, they're petitioning, they're making phone calls. And now in Michigan, there was a campaign in the Democratic primary to vote. There were 3 or 4 people on the ballot. Biden was at the top, and then there were 2 others. I think Marianne Williamson was one. I don't remember the other guy's name. But there was a third category called uncommitted.
Mm-hmm.
And the Palestinian community, joined by young folks, African Americans, many others, developed a movement to vote uncommitted, and it was hugely successful. Some 13% of the vote, over 100,000 votes. They were aiming for 10,000. They blew that out the box. 100,000. What should be our attitude towards something like that, Anita, given that we're a separate political party?
I had to, yeah.
Go on.
I had to applaud it, actually. I thought it was a pretty brilliant move. It was a really dedicated group of people who called around and made sure that people knew that this option was possible, and people see the results of voting as a group, voting as a social act in the results of this campaign. And I think Michigan is one of the most progressive, is probably the most progressive state in the immediate region where I live. I'm just astounded by the progress that has been made in Michigan on all kinds of fronts. And I think the way that they've taken, I mean, we try for ceasefire resolutions in our city councils in Ohio, for example, and in other places. But in Michigan, they're going beyond that kind of a resolution, and even questioning the size of the military budget, for example. And the leadership of people like Rashida Tlaib is just so important there. So and the role of the United Auto Workers as well. Michigan just seems to have a perfect storm of doing the right thing. And I think this is another aspect of it. It's a super politically charged time. I think it is true that people are really engaged politically right now, and it's not surprising since it's 2024 and we're coming up to an election. So I think it's a good thing that people are questioning. You know, I don't want a Trump to win in November. But I don't think this election had anything to do with that exactly. So that's.
Well, Michigan is a good example of keeping hope alive because 2 or 3 years ago, it wasn't all that progressive. It was a right to work state. You know, not too long ago, the Republicans dominated, but people organized and moved and fought and lobbied and voted. Hello, they voted, and they were. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, the right wing took over the state legislature, the militias. Remember that? And they had a plan to assassinate, who was it? The governor? Kidnap the governor? Or was it the Secretary of State?
Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah, I mean, these boys are hog wild. These militias, these right wing zealots and nuts. But so Anita, what you're saying is that we encourage people who are Democrats to vote their conscience. But we did not endorse that campaign, right? We're a separate political party. But those who are Democrats, we said, do your thing, keep the pressure on. It's a very important distinction to make because people keep accusing us of endorsing Biden. Y'all just tailing the Democratic Party, you're just tailing Biden, all you can think about and dream about is Joe Biden. And it's not true.
No, I don't think it's true. No, I mean, you can see pretty clearly, actually, I think, between what we've got with the CPAC lineup, which is we want to get rid of democracy, and then with what's happening in Michigan, you have working families, trade unions who are asserting themselves democratically. It doesn't take a Marxist to understand that one side is probably a little bit better for the country than the other, simply because that's the vehicle that certain class forces are driving in, right? On the right wing, you have Steve Bannon, you have Jack Pobiusek, or whatever his name is. You've got Nick Fuentes, you've got Donald Trump, you've got all of these crazy racists, awful bigots, monsters when it comes to any kind of issue regarding reproductive rights, really terrible when it comes to foreign policy and immigration and stuff. And these are capitalists. They want to get rid of the vote. They want to get rid of the working class's ability to sort of assert itself politically. And then on the other side, you have people who are really starting to kind of come into their own in terms of their awareness of their power. You have the trade union movement. You have voters who are coming out and asserting themselves at the ballot box, who are actually trying to pressure their electeds into making it easier for them to have more control in society. And so I think it's pretty simple in which side we would say, yeah, that's actually probably a better way to drive the car than that way. I don't see it as an endorsement. It's more of like noticing what class forces are behind each of the two bourgeois political parties.
what we endorse is focusing on the issues. Reproductive rights. You want to be able to have an abortion? You want to have control over your body? Well, you know, you got to make that choice in November. Affirmative action. You want to be able to go to college, become a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, astronaut, whatever, you know. Make that choice in November. You want to study architecture? Make the choice. But right now we're saying make the choice to keep the pressure on with respect to Gaza. That's the most important issue before the country, because without that, we're going to have a really, really hard road to hoe, you know, come November, you know. Let's move the agenda. We have Starbucks. Okay, big development in the Starbucks efforts to form a union. We thought we were going to have one of the union representatives this morning. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do it. But it seems that a framework has been put together and that this company who had refused to do it so far has agreed to enter into negotiations with the organizers of the union movement, which may set the stage for recognition. Big development, no?
Yeah, it truly is a historical development, especially considering that Starbucks is retail. These are retail workers who have been organizing essentially and service workers. And that is typically an industry which people discount as it can't be organized because people are in and out of the job too quickly, or the workers themselves may say, I'm not going to be here for very long. And so union busting tactics that the boss might use, like firing organizers or offering benefits to everybody but the organizers, have tended to be very effective, but it hasn't worked in this case. You know, in December 2021 is when Buffalo uh, became the first city to have a unionized Starbucks, and it just took the nation by storm. And they held on for 2 years while the company tried to fight them and would not meet them at the bargaining table. So even if you read some of the news about this, you see the workers were in disbelief at first. You know, people in the media were checking to see if, you know, if Starbucks is really doing this or is this just another sign of delay. So I think this is reason to be hopeful, and I think this is something that we can build on in the labor movement, because this type of work where things are somewhat precarious is only becoming more common because it's easier to make money that way for capitalists. So I think this is a strong development.
And if you can do it at Starbucks, you can do it at Mickey D's, you can do it at Burger King, you can do it at all of these different, retail, fast food, and other outfits all across the country. And so, congratulations, and we're going to join with you in keeping the pressure on. Okay, now, believe it or not, we came across a story that kind of goes under the "that's capitalism" category. Um, you know, uh, the main imperative under capitalism is to make money. We call that, Marx called that the law of the maximization of profit. You just can't make any profit. You got to make the highest profit possible. You got to make it any way you can. And so the CEO of Kellogg's has decided to make it out of people being hungry and not having enough money to pay for dinner. Play that commercial. Producer, please.
When I say cereal, you say dinner. Cereal.
Dinner!
Cereal.
Dinner!
Chicken!
You can have the night off, chicken.
Ah, okay, I'll go marinate.
Cereal.
Dinner!
Cereal.
Dinner!
Can you imagine? There he goes, Gary Pilnick. Where's his email? We need to dox that blankety blank. Anita, they're saying you can eat dinner for $1 or less. People boasting about it. People under pressure.
Unbelievable.
That's all you
And
got to say?
the commercial has been out for a year, but apparently, I mean, he made these comments that it was aimed at people who have struggled with their food bill. It's just outrageous. And plenty of people have been pointing out that boxes of his cereal are so expensive that you could, make yourself a good dinner that is actually a nutritious dinner for less than the cost of a box of his cereal. So, but it's just outrageous. He has $1 million salary with $4 million in incentives. So, his children, as someone said, are not eating cereal for dinner.
Certainly not. Taryn, there was another story in the Wall Street Journal about a similar.
Yeah, it was if you want to save money, you should skip breakfast every day. And so this is perhaps, Kellogg's way of coming behind and saying, well, maybe if you're going to skip breakfast, you could have cereal for dinner. But I don't think these jerks have ever skipped a meal in their life because they had to, and it just sort of shows the wretched contempt that they have for the working class. I mean, they really do think that we're idiots. Like, none of us have never had to eat cereal for dinner before. Like, none of us has ever had to skip meals. It's almost like they are thinking of this all on their brilliant selves, like, oh yeah, I guess if I were poor, I would skip meals. It's like, yeah, we do that. Like, we have to skip meals. We have to eat cereal for dinner sometimes, and don't shove it in our face. Like, don't be like, oh yeah, this is us doing a good thing for you, giving you nutritious, feed for dinner. It's disgusting. This guy should have to only eat his own stupid cereal for the rest of his life.
Okay, another indication of capitalist freedom. You can either skip breakfast or have cereal for dinner. Huh? Choice in the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 4 years plus in university, and I graduated at a calorie deficient. So I know all about that struggle, and that he doesn't have to deal with it because anybody who's walking through the store sees that the cereal costs like $7 a box. And I don't know about people in other places in the country, but I can get a carton of eggs for $4. I can get some bread and peanut butter. So it's like there are real struggle foods out there, and he doesn't know about them. And if you look at the interview where he states this, he keeps on talking about the consumer under pressure, and he can't wipe the smirk off of his face. He really looks like he's having fun with this. And it makes you wonder, what would it be like if we subjected these CEOs to the type of treatment that they advocate for us to go through? I'm sure they would raise all types of hell. So, I think we can eat better than what he wants us to eat, and also we can do better. I mean, Kellogg's just had a strike 2 years ago, I believe it was now. And I think those workers should think about what they can do from the inside to push the CEO towards maybe having a bowl of cereal for dinner.
That's capitalism, folks. And that's our show. Thank you very much for showing up this morning and watching. Kate, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with another edition of Good Morning Revolution. Until then, stay strong, stay safe, and stay in the fight, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Everybody.
Bye.